Can you believe there was a time when this was the cutting-edge arcade basketball game? I guess Arch Rivals looks okay for a 1989 game. It's slow and awkward. But it's still a fun game, sort of. And it's an important part of video game history. Now, as you know, as you've gathered so far, every time I talk about how historic or important a game is, the reality is that the game sucks. It's no fun to play. As for Arch Rivals, well, I mean, take a look. It's a 2-on-2 basketball game, that much is clear. You can punch players by using the pass button when you're on defense. You can block shots if you time them right. And you can do this really awkward diving move where you fall straight to the ground. And, well, it's a basketball game. And the 2-on-2 concept should remind you of another Midway game, right? NBA Jam was largely based on the fundamental concepts behind Arch Rivals, except of course it was faster, it had real players, it had real logos, it had an announcer, it was difficult, and it was actually fun. Now, to be fair, Arch Rivals was a step up from the earlier arcade basketball games. Konami's Super Basketball was the first arcade basketball game out there. That came out back in 1984. And you didn't play defense. You just tried to score as many points as you could in a brief amount of time. The graphics look okay, sure, but the game is pretty bad. This is one game that definitely has not stood the test of time. Konami came back in 1986 with Double Dribble. Double Dribble had some pretty impressive voices. Well, except for this part, of course. The game itself isn't anywhere close to the NES game, though. And it takes forever to play since the quarters in the game are 12 minutes long. Plus, you have to keep putting in coins like every 2 or 3 minutes, like in-game minutes. If you're leading when it's time to put in a coin, the game will let you keep playing for a little bit longer for free. But it's a hard game, which means that you're going to wind up paying a lot of money if you want to actually play a full game. And it's really, really tedious. Anyway, Magic Johnson's Fast Break came next in 1988. The graphics are a lot better. Plus, this is a 2-on-2 game. But everything else is just bad. Honestly, it's a lot more fun to watch this cheerleader than to actually play the game. Now, from what I can tell, this is where the concept of that 2-on-2 basketball really started. Now, Magic Johnson's Fast Break suffers from really obvious frame rate issues. It was programmed to be an Amiga game, you know, the old Commodore computer, and it was basically ported to the arcades. Even though it came out on the Amiga after the arcade version, it's really weird. Arch Rivals, on the other hand, was a dedicated arcade machine that was created by Bally Midway. Midway was best known in the arcade world by its Pac-Man series. Of course, Midway didn't actually create Pac-Man. It got the license from the Japanese company Namco. Midway beat out Atari to get that license and released Pac-Man to quite a bit of fanfare in late 1980. Though this game's not quite as famous, Midway also had another hit back in 1986 with Rampage, which is a pretty impressive game for its time. Rampage was well known for being really irreverent. The whole point is to just destroy everything. It was every parent's nightmare, and Midway was proud of it. And this is the beginning of what I guess we can call the Attitude Era of video games. You can see that all over Arch Rivals, of course. I mean, the fact that you can punch players makes that attitude obvious, right? But that's not all. You can also lunge forward to tug down the other player's shorts. You can steal the ball that way. There are also the somewhat gratuitous shots of the cheerleaders. This is actually one of the best features of the game. During most of the cutscenes after someone makes a basket, you see this coach, or this referee. It's nice to be able to see something that looks a little bit better than that. And this is one of the best halftime shows I've ever seen.
More to come.
Now, it's a really good thing that they stuck all that attitude in the game because there are so many things wrong with this game. The controls are just incredibly stiff. It really is a problem. And the buttons are delayed like crazy. When you get used to the timing, the game actually becomes a lot easier. It's also really easy to mix things up and accidentally shoot a full court shot. Though the dive move is kind of cool, it looks really stupid when you miss. You've also got to worry about garbage on the court during the second and fourth quarters. It goes away after you slip on it, but it really can be annoying if, you're trying to win. Fortunately, the game really isn't that hard and there's no rubber banding effect. However, the game asks you for money constantly. It's more than $2 to finish a single game. It took me almost 20 minutes to complete a single game. When you win, you get the girl. That's a good touch. And then it saves your stats, and that's it. Yeah, there's no beat every team in the NBA type challenge here. There are no unlockable characters. There's no on fire mode. No, it's just a 2-on-2 basketball game with some punching and with cheerleaders in bikini tops. It was a successful game though, maybe not a hit, but it still did pretty well. The UK magazine Sinclair Users seemed to like it. 8 out of 10, that's not a bad score. Computer and Video Games gave it a review that was a bit more critical, and I think this score is more fitting for a game that was clearly flawed. As for US magazines, well, this is before they actually gave scores to video games. All GamePro gave us was a bland description of how to play. Well, the industry has changed a lot since those days. Arch Rival is fun for a few minutes, but it's really not designed for serious play. Now, you can trust me on this because I spent a lot of time playing this game for this video, including a lot of the console ports. I'm sick of this game, and I'm especially sick of those home console ports. Oh man. In late 1990, Arch Rivals was ported over to the Nintendo Entertainment System. The box made the game look a lot more interesting than it really was. And of course, the port was made by Acclaim. I'm really starting to get annoyed with Acclaim and their lousy ports of Midway arcade games. I mean, they couldn't find a different company to do this, and this game is definitely no exception. It certainly is Arch Rivals, that's for sure. The controls are even worse than the arcade version. It took me a while to get used to the flow. In the second half, though, the game felt like it was too easy. We wound up winning the game pretty easily, even though I didn't do much in the first half. And in the end, you get the cheerleader, and that's it. Anyway, I wasn't all that impressed with the NES version of this game. And neither was GamePro, which gave it a pretty average rating, an unusually low rating from a magazine that rated just about everything great. Well, I mean, you think that would be enough Arch Rivals, right? I mean, it made some money in the arcades, and we had an NES port through Acclaim that was mediocre at best. But no, of course not, there had to be more. You see, Arch Rivals is the series that never dies. You see, there was also a Sega Genesis version of Arch Rivals, and once again we have Acclaim to thank for this. You see the pattern? Now the bizarre thing is that this game came out in late 1992, which was years after the arcade game was first released. Now this game is better than the NES version, which is obvious. It's got voices, for example. But it still takes forever to play a game because of the stupid cutscenes. This game is way too easy. I built up a huge lead and then just got bored with it. And once again, the only entertaining part is the halftime show. Now that's assuming you can actually make it long enough to get to the halftime show. I mean, the problem with this game is that it takes forever to play no matter what console you play it on. Quarters are 4 minutes long for starters, which is way too long for a game like this. But the constant cutscenes after baskets really slows the game down a lot. And the ball goes flying around all over the place like it's got a mind of its own. Anyway, GamePro gave this game another review, and this time the review was really exaggerated. I mean, this is way too high for a game like this. Sure, the graphics look okay, I guess. The shots of the cheerleader looks particularly nice, but the gameplay was outdated by 1992. And that's not all. No, there's one more port, and this is the one I really can't figure out. They also made a port for the Game Gear. This was another acclaimed creation done with Flying Edge, the same company that programmed the Genesis cartridge. From what I can tell, this game was released in 1993. This is probably after NBA Jam came out in the arcades, and this game is nothing short of bizarre. Well, we've looked at two other Arch Rivals ports now. Now the Game Gear version is different, not just because it came out later than the other games, but because everything about it is totally bizarre. The court feels like it's miles long, it's crazy. And the ball just flies all over the place, it's like it's on drugs. The controls are chaotic at best. The players all look the same, which spoils the fun. And it's almost impossible to make a shot. As usual, the cheerleader parts are the only interesting parts. The game itself is horrible. And I'm not even exaggerating here, I really mean it. The Game Gear version of Arch Rivals is unplayable. Here, I'll show you. At the start of the fourth quarter, the ball went flying around as usual. And then it flew into this corner. Nobody could do anything. So I went up and I punched my coach. I punched the fans. I dove into the crowd. But in the end, I had to sit back and wait for time to run out. Well, like I said, it's unplayable. It's a piece of junk. It's a complete mess. They didn't do any quality control. Nobody tested it. I don't know why it even came out on the Game Gear at all. I mean, was there demand? Were kids going around saying, oh, I wish I had Arch Rivals to play for 4 hours on my Game Gear before all the batteries ran out of juice? Anyway, as you've probably noticed, a lot of the ideas behind Arch Rivals showed up again in NBA Jam. But you know, at least NBA Jam feels like a basketball game. Arch Rivals is just a silly arcade game and was never really meant to be a basketball game. It's fine for a laugh, but you'll wind up turning it off before you can complete a single full game. Well, as disappointing as the game is, it still is better than the other basketball games that were out at that time. And that says something about how bad basketball games were back in the old days. Anyway, give Arch Rivals a chance, I guess, but don't say I didn't warn you.